What if the very land you call home turned against you? Imagine a place where the air is so thick with dust, it suffocates you. The Dust Bowl was not just an environmental disaster, it was a decade-long nightmare that swallowed an entire generation. In the 1930s, the Great Plains spanning parts of Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, and Colorado were a beacon of hope for America's agricultural development, providing livelihoods and sustenance. Farmers were eager to build up their agriculture, so they plowed the grasses that held the soil, unaware that they were erasing nature's defenses against the unforgiving winds of the plains. But beneath the surface, disaster was building up. Overplowed fields and drought-stricken soil set the stage for an environmental tragedy. April 14th, 1935 became known as Black Sunday. A storm of unprecedented ferocity swept through the plains, carrying millions of tons of dust, blotting out the sun, and turning day into night. Homes were buried, crops destroyed, and lives uprooted. Dubbed a black blizzard, it transformed fertile lands into barren deserts, forcing families to flee for survival. Over 2.5 million people abandoned the plains during the Dust Bowl, becoming environmental refugees in their own country. For those who stayed, life was a relentless battle against nature. This disaster prompted critical changes, including the Soil Conservation Act of 1935, aimed at healing the land and preventing future catastrophes. The Dust Bowl was more than a cautionary tale, it was a battle for survival. It serves as a grim reminder of the consequences when humanity neglects its delicate balance with nature. Have we learned from the past, or are we destined to repeat it? Imagine a river so toxic it could catch fire. Not once, but 13 times. Yes, you heard that right. 13 times. This was the reality for the Cuyahoga River in Cleveland, Ohio, a dumping ground for decades of industrial waste. On June 22, 1969, the unimaginable happened again, this time under the world's watchful eye. For years, the Cuyahoga served as an industrial lifeline, but prosperity came at a steep price due to poor chemical handling. Oil slicks, chemicals, and debris floated on its surface, transforming it into a river of sludge. Local fishermen and residents had long abandoned hope for life in its waters. Few could imagine the lurking danger until a spark from a passing train ignited the river. A train crossing the river sent sparks cascading down, igniting the oily surface. Flames roared over 5 stories high, scorching a nearby bridge and sending thick, black smoke billowing into the sky. The fire wasn't the first, but it was the wake-up call the country needed. The fire made headlines, fueling public outrage and leading to the creation of the Clean Water Act and the Environmental Protection Agency, making a turning point in America's fight for environmental accountability. Today, the Cuyahoga River flows clean, a testament to resilience and reform. Yes, its fiery legacy remains a stark reminder of the cost of neglect and the power of action to heal. This story challenges us to reflect on our environmental responsibilities. Imagine a city suffocating under a deadly blanket of smog. In December 1952, London became a death trap, with thousands choking on the very air that they breathed. This is the story of the Great Smog, a disaster that forever changed our perception of pollution. Post-war London was booming, but at a cost. Coal-fired power plants, domestic stoves, and factories released thick smoke. Combined with cold weather, this pollution formed a dense fog, trapping toxic chemicals, especially sulfur dioxide, at ground level. On December 5, 1952, the smog began to destroy the city by suffocating everyone. Think of the people already having respiratory issues. It was devastating. It was so thick that visibility dropped just to a few feet. Buses and trains stopped, planes were grounded, and ambulances couldn't navigate the streets. But the real danger wasn't what you could see. It was what you couldn't. The air was laced with deadly sulfur dioxide, causing respiratory failure in thousands. Over 5 days, the smog claimed more than over 12,000 lives and hospitalized thousands more. It shocked the world into action, leading to the Clean Air Act of 1956, a landmark in environmental policy. The Great Smog of London was a silent killer, but its legacy lives on as a warning, and a reminder to protect the air that we breathe. On December 3, 1984, an ordinary night in Bhopal turned into a nightmare as the air became a silent killer. Within hours, the world witnessed one of the deadliest industrial disasters in history. For a deeper dive into the Bhopal disaster and other industrial accidents, check out our other video on industrial accidents of the 21st century. At the heart of the Bhopal stood a pesticide plant owned by Union Carbide, where tanks stored methyl isocyanate, a highly toxic chemical used in pesticide production. This chemical claimed many lives. But how? Years of cost-cutting and neglect had weakened safety systems, creating a ticking time bomb. On that fateful night, water seeped into an MIC storage tank, causing pressure and heat to build rapidly until the tank ruptured. A dense toxic gas cloud spread over Bhopal, silently engulfing the sleeping city. Thousands were awakened by a burning sensation in their lungs, struggling to breathe as the deadly gas surrounded their homes. People woke up choking, blinded, and gasping for air. Over 3,000 died within hours, and the death toll rose to 25,000 over the years, with thousands more suffering chronic illnesses. The impact was devastating, leaving pain and injustice. The Bhopal disaster wasn't just an accident, it was a failure of responsibility, a haunting reminder that human lives must never come second to profit. The Aral Sea's tragic story is a dark chapter in Kazakhstan's history, a disaster caused not by nature, but by human intervention. In the 1960s, the Soviet Union launched an ambitious irrigation scheme to transform the arid steppes of Central Asia into the world's largest cotton producer. The Amu Darya and Sir Darya rivers, which fed the Aral Sea, were diverted to irrigate vast fields, but no one anticipated the devastating cost. As the water supply stopped, the Aral Sea began to shrink. By the 1980s, it had already lost half its size. Toxic salt and pesticide-laden dust storms blew across the region, contaminating crops and causing widespread respiratory diseases. The once thriving fishing industry collapsed, leaving millions in poverty. By the 1990s, the Aral Sea was a ghost of its former self, split into two shrinking basins, with over 90% of its water gone. Though the northern Aral Sea has been partially recovered due to the projects like the Aral Dam, the scars of this disaster remain. The Aral Sea stands as a powerful warning of what happens when human ambition overrides ecological balance. Imagine living by the sea, where the water provides food, life, and community, only to discover it's poisoning you. In the 1950s, the town of Minamata, Japan, became ground zero for a horrifying disease caused by industrial greed. For decades, the Chiso Corporation, a chemical plant in Minamata, discharged untreated wastewater directly into the bay. This water contained methylmercury, a toxic compound created during the production of acetaldehyde. The company ignored the risks, prioritizing profit over safety. The local community, heavily reliant on fishing, unknowingly consumed the seafood contaminated with mercury. The poison built up in their bodies, leading to devastating effects. Victims experienced trembling, loss of coordination, slurred speech, and in severe cases, paralysis, coma, and death. Even unborn children were affected, with many born with severe deformities. It wasn't until 1956 that doctors identified the link between the mysterious symptoms and mercury poisoning. Despite clear evidence, Chiso denied responsibility for years, sparking protests and legal battles. Thousands of lives were lost or permanently damaged by the company's negligence. The Minamata disease remains a haunting reminder of what happens when profit is placed above human life. It's a story of tragedy, resilience, and the ongoing fight for corporate accountability. What if you live next to a chemical plant, unaware that a deadly explosion is about to turn your world upside down? On November 13th, 2005, the people of Jilin City, China, experienced a disaster that shook not just their city, but the entire country. This is the story of the Jilin chemical plant explosions. We covered this disaster in our industrial accidents of the 21st century video, but its impact is significant enough to warrant another mention. The Jilin chemical plant, operated by the Jilin Petrochemical Company, produced a variety of chemicals, including benzene, which is a highly flammable and toxic substance. On that fateful day, an explosion at one of the plant's reactors triggered a series of blasts that sent shockwaves through the surrounding area. Massive explosions rocked the facility, destroying buildings and igniting fires that raged for days. The blast killed at least 10 people immediately and injured dozens more. The destruction was catastrophic, but the true horror lay in what came next: the release of toxic chemicals into the environment. Benzene and other dangerous chemicals were released into the Songhua River, a major water source for millions. Within days, nearly 3 million people were at risk of contamination. The local government faced massive criticism for failing to contain the disaster promptly. And the event highlighted significant issues in China's industrial safety regulations. The Jilin explosions remind the world of the deadly consequences when industrial safety is neglected. As China's rapid growth continues, the Jilin disaster stands as a stark reminder of the importance of accountability and safety in industrial development. War leaves behind more than just casualties. It scars the planet for generations. In 1991, during the Gulf War, one of the largest and most devastating oil spills in history occurred, turning the pristine waters of the Persian Gulf into a toxic wasteland. As US forces advanced into Kuwait, Iraqi forces retaliated by setting fire to oil wells and deliberately spilling millions of barrels of oil into the sea. The attack was a calculated act of environmental destruction aimed at crippling the coalition forces' operations and causing long-lasting ecological damage. For several months, an estimated 11 million barrels of crude oil were released into the Persian Gulf. The oil spread quickly, forming a thick, black slick that covered thousands of square miles of ocean. Beaches, marine life, and fishing industries were destroyed. For weeks, the sky was darkened by smoke, and the sea turned black with oil. Marine ecosystems were devastated. Species like fish, sea turtles, and birds were killed by the oil, while the livelihoods of millions who depended on the Gulf for fishing and tourism were shattered. The Gulf War oil spill remains one of the largest environmental disasters in history, serving as a reminder that war not only costs lives, but also leaves a legacy of destruction that takes decades, if not centuries, to heal. For more insights into this and other significant oil spills, check out our dedicated video on oil spill disasters. Which environmental accident story impacted you the most? Share your thoughts in the comments below and let us know if you'd like to see a part 2 of exploring more environmental disasters. Join us next time as we delve deeper into the events that have shaped our world, because every environmental disaster has a story worth telling.